Okay, we're good. Hello, everyone. Um, we got a lot of cool updates for you guys. We didn't have any fun topics requested this time, so if you come up with any ideas, either put them in the streaming discussion channel in OneLeaf in the Discord, or in the just the stream chat. Um, yeah, we can just go ahead and start with the community updates. So for those of you who weren't, oh, before we get going, we have Zach and Susie here with me, the other community moderators.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Um, Yeah. So, anyways, as we're going on, so first community update we got is a new moderator. In Discord, his Discord name is Alo, and his name is Cody. He'll be posting all of our announcements, and he'll be, helping make sure that the people are using the Discord correctly. We also have a lot of new members. For those of you that have been in here for a little while, start some conversation up with them, make them feel like they're at home. Anything else you guys wanted to add to that?
I'd just like to welcome everyone joining. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the help channel. Message any one of us. If you see really anyone with a title on the top right that is like core, project owner, or anyone above that, feel free to message them, private message them if you have any questions, or shout out in a channel. We have a lot of channels, and you'll most likely receive warm feedback or a warm reply to any message that you post, or maybe a redirection to the better channel to post in.
Our goal is to really just make it all comfortable and feel welcome, and One Leaf is a place for everyone, any level. So don't feel like, oh, I don't know enough about programming or design or anything like that. We're really for everyone, and feel free to message any of us.
Next we wanted to just give a reminder of the proposal channel in in the OneLeaf Discord. This is really used for you to be able to propose your own projects, or help us keep track of all the proposals that we have for others that are interested in starting a project in OneLeaf and helping us manage them. Can we get Susie a bit louder? Yeah, I'll just Susie and Zach are on the same microphone, so I just have to turn up Zach. Susie, can you go ahead and try talking?
I'm scooted in closer. Is that better?
Yeah, much.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, anything else you guys want to add to the update channel?
I don't think so.
Okay. So then on to, I don't know how we put project updates here. We're going to go over the project updates for all the active projects that we have in OneLeaf. We'll get to those in just a second. We do have an update for One Swag, which is our the hoodies that we ordered. We ordered some samples, but it looks like the print quality is kind of low. Susie, what was the final decision on that one?
The print quality is not that good. The sizing's great. The material is fine. So I don't know if we came up with a final decision on it.
Honestly, I was more in the side of they're fine enough for the price. Like when I buy it, I don't expect a professional grade, stuff that I'm gonna wear to anywhere fancy. So if it's not the best quality, that's fine. But when we're talking about the print quality, I think it was mainly the issue of the logo being too small. If we made that bigger, I think it would be fine. But I mean, I don't know how much you guys want to go for. What? It was like $26 with shipping, right?
The logo was too small and it was hard to see on black. I feel like if we did it bigger and maybe on gray or something, it'd probably print better because you could see it better.
So be careful what you're saying because people can't see what you're talking about. Yeah. You guys are saying print quality, which means kind of the general logos and everything seemed fine. It's just it was too, and the logo is too small. So I think we're still going to stick with it. I think we might just have a revote and that stuff, but I'm going to really try to just push to get these out because we can always have a version 3 or a next iteration. We really want to just get these in the hands of some other people. So I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I'm thinking after this on the weekend, we'll chat one more time and make one more order to order that. I don't think there's any other issue. We can do one more vote if it changes color. But
Yeah, really just
since it
redesign it,
wasn't
increase the logo of the
I can
shirt.
post photos.
Okay.
I think we're at the point of not trying to fix. I think we should just get through with it because it was fine enough. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't bad quality compared to the first things that we got.
Yeah,
So
by
like
no
as
means was
soon
it
as
bad.
we wash it, it's gonna be like, I don't know, guys. I'll post. I kind of have a lot on streaming discussion. I'll post there.
So yeah, hopefully by next stream we'll have a link for you guys to be able to order your um, one swag. Wow, brain's not working so hot today. As usual, at the beginning of most of the streams, we're letting people know that we are looking for more Discord moderators, community managers, and those that would like to take a leadership role within OneLeaf. So if that's something that you are interested in, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Um, I think the biggest update that we have for you guys this week would be Zach and I's streams. We're starting 2 new stream series. Zach is on every Tuesday at 6 p.m. CST. He's going to be streaming a tutorial series on Swift. Um, I'll be streaming on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. CST, doing a tutorial series on C#, and I might be doing another on Unity just by popular request. So we'll figure that out this weekend.
Did you talk about the Discord mod and community managers?
Yeah,
Okay, I was switching my internet really quick.
no problem. Zach, do you want to talk about internships?
Yeah, just generally about internships or ours specifically.
Ours specifically.
For an internship, look for these. No. So One Leaf's well, first, yeah, One Leaf's a nonprofit, so we've been looking to have some interns help us with kind of manage, moderate, help lead One Leaf, as all three of us manage it part to full time, mainly kind of full time. It's more of 2 jobs, so we definitely spend a lot of hours kind of managing, thinking, meeting, and working on One Leaf. So we found at least 2 interns right now that will be having help us kind of promote One Leaf, PR, moderate Discord, and also Discord announcements. So hopefully you'll hear from us more on our social media platforms because none of us 3 are that active in it. Especially I don't have any social media, so I don't care for it. But yeah, going to the internships, we really want to give the opportunity, give some responsibility and experience for people that don't have the opportunity to actually get an internship, a job, or something else in programming. So it's obviously limited and it's more strict on the expectations or the work done for the internship. But ideally, an intern is just a normal member of One Leaf, except that they have some expectations of One Leaf to get done. Everyone in One Leaf is a voluntary member, so everyone participating, it's voluntary. We're not forcing anyone into it. But obviously, for an internship, there comes some expectations. And these are both for the intern and for One Leaf and us to make sure that we're both benefiting from each other, that we're both learning, and that intern will grow as a member of One Leaf, but also grow and hopefully get a job that they are comfortable with and they want. So that's kind of the ideal of the internship. It's obviously very generic because One Leaf is very broad. We could have interns as PR interns. We could have interns focusing on projects, just doing basic development. If, high school or college student is interested in, let's say, 10 hours of dedicated development on projects, that could be some kind of internship. We're really trying to work with the idea. We really just want to have expectations, shared expectations, and for those to be more professional And of course, OneLeaf itself, everything that you do, I would say feel free to put on your resume, feel free to put on anything because it's voluntary work. But yes, that internship is to supply for that experience that they can't get because of the limited job market, and especially now since the kind of pandemic that we're in. So that's kind of the quick array on why and what our internships are. They're very broad, very general, but we want to personally meet with you every week, make sure that you are getting the hours that you want. It's all expectations. So you expect that you want to work this many hours. We'll try to make sure you can fill that many and be satisfied with what you're working on and hopefully learn and grow from.
Last thing that I'd like to add to that is that we do want to set these expectations because if you are going to put us on your resume, we want to have some level of credibility. So that way, if they were to call Zach, Susie, or I, if you were to put us as a reference on your resume or as work experience, we want to be able to tell them what you've done, and those check-ins will help us feel good about being able to be a reference on your resume without we're not going to be just a free thing to put on your resume, and then if they call us, we have to be able to tell them what you did. We can't lie. We have to keep that credibility of the organization.
So we have a question from Elon Tusk. Could the resume in theory be flexible? Example, 18 hours one week and 5 hours another week. I think yes, it can be flexible as long as it's not broken. So I mean, to the point of if it's 15 hours one week, 5 hours another week, and then 2 hours the next, and I mean, there has to be some bounce back.
Could there be like an average, average 10 hours, but every other week is like 5-15, and then so you're averaging 10, but it's just like flip-flops between a couple weeks. I could see that. Or if you just plan ahead and say, like, for this month I want just 5 hours because I have finals or whatever, I could see that too.
Yeah, me too. Basically, you just have to update us and make sure we're aware of what you've done, so that way we can sign off on it.
Well, pretty much also, I think we're forgetting the part of can you fill that much time? There's a expectation set with the weekly meeting that we'll have that would be like, what's your expectation time? And if that ever changes per week to week, then hopefully you'll let us know. But that's obviously in a range. And yeah, I would say if you say 10 hours, I would expect between 5 to 15. Just, just to give an equal range of that. But yes, it is flexible. It's just what I was saying at the beginning was as long as it doesn't continually go down, as long as you can bounce 5 back up. Like if 15 is a high forever, then is it always going down at some point? And it just consistency is key, expectations, and making sure that it's laid out on the table and both of us understand. So yes, if you knew that for 1 week you could do 15 and then another week you could do 5, and then yeah, as long as it's on the table, we totally understand. We will be very flexible to work with you because we understand that you may have a part-time job, you may be going to college, you may have a full-time job, maybe another part-time job, you may try to be getting out of a job. There's a lot of reasons that you may need to be flexible. So we're 100% willing to look or help you kind of find reasons to have the internship and to make it work. If it's flexible and that stuff, all we ask is that you're just hungry and eager to work. We'll agree on, let's say, 10 hours for a week, and you'll come back and tell us the amount of hours that you actually worked. And hopefully we can fill the hours that you have expectations of. If you don't, we can always add more expectations of, hey, maybe you jump on this project and do a few tickets or anything like that, and kind of aim the internship as what you want. Now, again, we've talked about this quite a bit, and I started the whole conversation as saying that this is a limited quantity thing. Not everyone just gets the opportunity to this. We'll obviously have an interview and everything like that. But as OneLeaf is more voluntary, I would ask that the people that need more of this kind of internship ask for it. If you don't, please don't. And I don't know if that sounds weird, but I just want to leave the opportunity for the people that need it, because regardless if you're an intern or a member of OneLeaf, ideally you're the same. It's just if there's expectations to get work done or not. And if you do that as a OneLeaf member, then it's almost identical.
Yeah, you're still getting experience just being a member. We try to again, that internal is kind of focused in a certain way.
And for a certain age, like kind of high school, coming out to college, kind of getting that stuff. But we're definitely open to outside of that. It's just we really want to meet with you. We really want to understand what you're doing in life, where you're trying to go. And like I said in the beginning, with this internship, we really want to see you either grow as a member of OneLeaf in OneLeaf or grow into a position that you want to go to. If you're not and you're just a member of OneLeaf for a year and you're an intern in OneLeaf, then we're kind of concerned. We really want you to be doing what you want. So we don't want you to feel stuck at all. And of course, we don't want any member of OneLeaf to feel stuck or anything like that, but just to understand that that position is for growth and specific growth if you need it.
But yeah, if we skipped over something or you still have questions, feel free to just reach out to us. Oh, Elon Tusk had another question. Does the name One Leaf come from search trees, or are you a conservationist? We get this question a lot. It'll be more clear once the One Leaf website is up where the name came from. But Zach's name, his last name is Erickson. So his nickname in college was Leaf because Leaf Erickson. Um, so Zach mentored me in college, and the idea was that what if we could all be like Zach? We'd all be one leaf. Is where the name came from. It's kind of a fun metaphor. So yeah, moving on to the active project updates. So we break our projects down into two categories. We have organizational projects and we have community projects. The organizational projects are ones that either all of OneLeaf can work on. I mean, all the projects should be open for whoever to work on, but they're more of like organizationally focused. So, for example, it would either be the OneLeaf website or the OneLeaf mobile app, or a project that we're doing for as an organization for a nonprofit because we like to do or we want to do more projects for other nonprofits. So the main project that we've been putting in the majority of our work into recently has been the OneLeaf website. And what we've gotten done since the last stream was update a ton of documentation to make it easier for all the new members to hop on the project. We have a new designer added to the team, Hannah. Um, she might be doing mobile work. We'll figure out exactly what she's doing. Susie, do you know what she's doing yet?
I put her on mobile tab nav for now. And then that's not gonna take that's not gonna be a forever thing. Like we can always switch roles, so that's just what she's starting with.
Got it. So the next thing that we're working on is the OL Go, which is the OneLeaf iOS and Android apps. Zach, I believe you started on that this week, didn't you? You laid out tickets and whatnot.
Yep. So I've been starting on that. And that's a funny story because there's quite a bit that is in the works. Originally, the OL Go or OneLeaf Go iOS app was the first client to interact with the OneLeaf Go backend the OneLeaf website backend or the Vapor API. So that was kind of my check mark of like, hey, the API works and I know that, and we can move forward with that. So recently, or not recently, but through the development of the OneLeaf API along with the front end for React, a lot of things have changed in the back end. We've switched from SQLite or MySQL, I forget which one, to Postgres, but then also we switched basic authentication to JWT tokens. So kind of updating the whole app to consume that API as it is already developed to consume the last API. So just making all the updates, making all the auth changes and everything like that. After that, it'll be done for everyone to work on. And it's really from the standpoint that you have an API singleton, and whatever view you make, you can just call from that and get the data that you want, and the API will be hooked up, and you can just help develop the app working only on the screens. So the only tickets right now are login, register, and I think meet the team. There's not too many tickets just because once the actual JWT gets done, then a lot of things can actually happen.
Oh, I don't know how I skipped over this. We got so basically, when you're setting up any sort of project, you can have what's called continuous deployment, which basically means every time a change is made to the app, you can deploy it out to wherever it's being used. In this case, we're a website, so we deploy it out to oneleif.com. We set up a separate deployment for the development, right? So we have oneleif.com used for like when we're done with whatever we're working on. Like if we're working on some features, whenever they're done and approved, they'd go to oneleif.com. But in the meantime, we have the dev.oneleaf.com. So if you just go to oneleaf.com right now, you have just the very original OneLeaf website that the front end developers made, and then if you go to dev.oneleaf.com, this is the in progress version 2 of the website. So you can see it's like the design is completely remade. We still have some things to fill in, but it already looks way better even without the words built into it and whatnot. So yeah, if you want to keep up to date on what the current status of the website is, dev.oneleaf.com is your place. Uh, Zach, you want to talk about Bread for the Journey?
Yep. So starting in our first official partnership project with another nonprofit, Bread for the Journey is a nonprofit based in Omaha that focuses on giving grants to other nonprofits or individuals that kind of excel in the community of changing in beneficial ways. So bringing changes to the community for specific people or other things like that. And I think we've said this before. One Leaf was able to get a grant from Bread for the Journey, and that helped cover quite a bit of our legal fees to become a nonprofit. So to help them and to further their cause, we would like to help develop their website. I think it was, I forget the original one, Bread for the Journey, omaha.org is the original one. So we've looked at Bread for the Journey, omaha.org. We've kind of analyzed what all it does. We've talked and had a meeting with one of the board members of Bread for the Journey and kind of got an understanding of where they lie, where they're wanting to go, and everything like that. So I think the next steps are to get some of the designers to look at kind of the website, get some lo-fis in, some storyboarding or wireframes in to understand kind of the navigation. We know the functionality. We're not going to add more than what they have. The first phase would be to visually give them an update, but also potentially give them a management system or a content management system, CMS, right? So that they can log in and update the content without having to go into a WordPress site and mess with it. So we really want to help them, but also show that their website can be updated very easily with an open source framework. And obviously, with our goal with that open source framework is that it's not specific for one person. Just like the One Leaf website is, it's aimed for a task to support One Leaf and that stuff. But the whole goal is that people could extend from the project and use it on their own potentially. So that's another thing with the Bread for the Journey is that when we meet together, we want to understand what the front end devs, what the back end devs, and everyone wants to use tech stack, any technologies, frameworks, and anything. But then also we want to make it extendable for anyone potentially using that project because these projects are going to be open source. But the website obviously is going to be more private for the client. We'll use the code for an open source project though. But yeah, I think that's the touch on it. That was our first kind of discussion of that, to just redo their website, give it a visual overhaul, keeping all the same functionality. But after that, they have a ton of partners or a ton of people that they're connected with, obviously through the grants and nonprofits that we would like to support. Our whole goal of One Leaf is to get people experience, and open source development is a great way to get experience, but a better way to get experience is open source development for a specific company that can actually talk for you or be a reference for you if you worked on their project or anything like that. So The idea being, if we work on Bread for the Journey, that's another client that we can have a professional experience with. And also, I'm sorry, I'm reading Arcus question. But also in the future, hopefully, sites for their clients that are other nonprofits or other people that can speak to our experience and we can help. So he says, so this is working on WP right now. Yeah. This is apparently on WordPress right now. We met with one of the board members and he explained how it was WordPress and how he had to learn it and deal with it. And it's not the best setup because really one of them understand it and one of them are responsible for it. So what we want is more of a portal system where any of them or any number of them can log in and update and kind of change that. But then even, maybe see a history of the change history or anything like that. Basic stuff like that. But that's kind of the overview of that. We will have a soon to plan that and to actually vote on the stack or frameworks that we're going to use for the front end and back end. But yeah, look forward to that. That will be something outside of OneLeaf, and that's our first nonprofit partner app or partner website.
Alrighty. So moving on, the next community project that we have updates on would be Swift UI Kit. Zach, what do you got updates on? Anything?
We're using it in the OneLeaf Go app.
Yep, cool. That's what I thought. So you had to make a package for it and whatnot, so it could be imported.
Yeah, so we still haven't fully switched over to the OneLeaf or the OneLeaf one, but what I said before about Swift UI Kit was that the OneLeaf fork is where OneLeaf contributions go. That's weird. But that's where they go. And I think we had this discussion of Sabian of both of our projects are OneLeaf community projects. And what that means is that they originally were our projects and we want other people to join on them. So OneLeaf forked them. So Sabian and I have I have a personal project and Sabian has a personal project. And we've been working on those repos respectively until recently, where we've decided that if a community project happens, that OneLeaf will fork that, and the members of OneLeaf can join on the OneLeaf fork or the OneLeaf repo of that project. So currently, nothing has updated between those two of my personal one and the OneLeaf one, other than the OneLeaf one will starting to be used in the OL Go one. So any changes that we need to that Swift UI kit, it's kind of diverging into two of my personal one and the community one. They're obviously still connected, but the community projects are aimed for community participation and also community direction. So if multiple people come in and want to add stuff to Swift UI Kit, well, the OneLeaf fork exists so that they can. And whoever still has, the original code, Sabian and I, for our original source that OneLeaf forked, we can optionally pull in any code or not take in any code. And that still lets anyone fully own their code. And OneLeaf just forked it to contribute as like fully open source model. So yeah, I guess the whole long answer and explaining of what happened to Swift UI Kit and Bunny Hop was that nothing updated except the OneLeaf fork and that we're using that.
So for Bunny Hop updates, yeah, the Bunny Hop project is no longer using my personal repository. It's using the OneLeaf one, so anybody can hop on. We have new team members that are interested in joining. Machi, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong every time. I should ask Arcus how to pronounce it. Um, he's on the project and he started doing all sorts of work, and he's getting lots of things done. I'm happy to have him on. Um, and I know there's other people interested in helping on the game, but they're more beginner level, so I need to basically teach them the basics first before they can hop on the project. And then the next like piece of the puzzle for Bunny Hop was making a developer console, so that way, people using the game or developers working on the game can have some sort of console that they can run tests through and whatnot. So we made that a a separate repository in OneLeaf for us to work on.
You want to touch a little bit more on that new project, the dev console?
Yeah, I probably should have made a proposal for it. Um, Basically, a common phenomena when you're making games is that you want some way to be able to um, either just quickly change a variable, like maybe you want to change your player's move speed, but you don't want to, take the time to stop the game, go edit that variable, and then come back and play the game again. If you could just change it while it's running, that'd be really nice. On top of that, it'd be nice to just have some commands to run, like if you've ever played games like Counter Strike or Gary's Mod, lots of Source Engine games have a developer console built in that allow you to change, variables of like if a server, like if you're playing a game on a server, you could change like whether or not it will allow you to cheat or things like that. So yeah, that's the project that we're building. We're trying to make it so that um, it's easy to test your application. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in working on something like that, let me know. It looks like Will and Fabrice are still in the Philadex meeting, but it looks like they're heavy under planning. For those that weren't here when we discussed this last week, Philadex is a new project. Basically, it's philanthropy index is the concatenation of words there. So basically, they're making a source of knowledge that it's easy for people that want to make a nonprofit to find the resources that are necessary. And then Will is also working on Leaf Down, which is like one leaf markdown. So basically, they want a way for us to easily make markdown. So if I go to like edit this page, for example, you can see that the bullet points are really typed as dashes, and then the markdown interpreter figures out what they should look like. So we're making our own, so that way we can add in custom styling and whatnot. And I know Will has started getting documentation up and running for that. So yeah, now we're on to the fun topic portion. So if anybody has any other questions or ideas that they want us to chit chat about, now's the time.
Yeah, and I'd like to open this also up a little bit more than just the normal one leaf stream. Temporarily, not like always, but if anyone has any questions on the Swift intro stream or the C# intro stream, the fundamental streams that we both started the series, feel free to ask them for this time during the one leaf stream. Other than that, I'll normally reserve those questions for those streams and those topics. But since we have some extra time, until we think of anything to talk about, feel free to ask any questions on this. So you can find both streams if you click on the One Leaf YouTube channel. If you scroll down, you can see stream series, and there will be all the stream language series that we have. So right now we have Learn Swift and Learn C#, and in the future we'll have more, and that's where they will be. So great question on that.
There you go. I walked through an example of it in the stream.
Oh, yours look different.
Did it?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because I'm logged in as the One Leaf account. I'm actually gonna. I think we had some questions from a couple weeks ago. I think I wrote them down in a separate note. Let me go look.
Oh, you went straight to playlist. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you could go straight to playlist and say created playlist, but you'll still see under there we have a category specifically stream series, and also we have a series for our website development for the front end and all the meetings that we have for the One Leaf website, front end and back end, mainly front end development right now.
Maybe I don't have notes. Never mind. Zach, are they gonna make us play Rocket League here? Is that what I'm thinking?
Oh. Oh, so Elon Tusk has a great question. Obviously, right now, we're mainly focused with U.S. organizations. We do plan to work internationally since our members are internationally, but since we're only an official nonprofit or organization in the U.S., we're trying to get more localized and actually a little bit bigger in the U.S. so we can expand out. We're still relatively small in the US. I'd say we're more equal across the globe versus like a lot of US members. Like we do have a lot of US people, but really our focus are our members, and a lot of our members aren't focused in the US. So it's weird because we want to support anyone of our members, but when they're not US citizens and that stuff, that it's obviously kind of weird. And I don't know, like from a business interaction of a nonprofit, a US nonprofit with other people outside the country, it's a little tough. But like I said in the very beginning, we want to expand outside of the US and be international. It's just tough when we're mainly based in the US and all three of the main members are in the state and in the same city. So that's again why we're looking for more Discord moderators from different countries, different time zones, but also community managers to help us lead with different countries or different time zones. Anything you guys have to say?
No, I agree totally, right? Like we're looking for people outside of our area just so we can be more global and more broadly spread, especially because even like just talking in Discord, it can be tough when we have a lot of members questions at like weird times for us, and we don't have anyone to cover that, certain times a day. So if you're international and looking to be some sort of manager at oneleif, we would love to have you.
To add a little bit more to your point about why business interactions internationally are weird, um, we do want to have some sort of formal, I don't want to say contract, but some sort of formal agreement between us and the nonprofit that we work with, to basically say that we are allowed to tell people that we are a partnership and basically like use their company's logo on our website for credibility reasons and whatnot. Um, and being able to sign those contracts internationally, we don't have a lawyer in oneleif, nor do we want to pay several $100s an hour to write up those contracts. So that's just not something that we're geared to do right now.
And it gets even more complicated as since our clients or the organizations that we're working with are from primarily the US right now. Anyone who's working on the projects gets US organization experience. So Bread for the Journey is US based, so I guess anyone working on it could say experience from that as a US company. So it's normal for me because I live in the the US, but I don't know for other people outside what that means to have experience from another country other than I guess professional experience is professional experience, and that's how I kind of look at it. But specifically working with other organizations internationally, I think we need to get more of home bases set up in different countries where we can have some core members or I guess core community managers and more business people kind of in the loop on in other countries. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Arcus is, if you want to work open source at night, there you go. oneleif, great. If you're in the EU, you'll be working at night right now. And that's kind of what we want to be fighting against is we want to get a lot more people in time zones that we can't manage because I'm sorry. I sleep when it's a.m. I'm not gonna be up at 4 a.m. when it's normal time for a lot of other people. And I feel really bad because Sabian, Susie, and I wake up to messages, introductions, and other people that have joined, and we would love to talk to them, love to introduce them, and love to just chat with them. But we're asleep, we're tired, and we have jobs. So yeah, we're looking for other people that would want to potentially just talk with a lot of people, kind of be in the loop of managers or community managers or anything like that. So it's 100% open. But just remember it, like we said, it's a part-time job at least for us. It's mainly a full-time job for all of us. So we have like two jobs. So we would love other people's assistance, but we really love One Leaf, so it's a lot of work for us. I keep Discord open all the time, and there you go. Look at Arcus, 2:40 a.m. where he is just staying up on the stream. So I love that. Thank you.
Dedication.
Are there any other questions on that? Really kind of open to any questions you guys have. The all three of the community managers here for One Leaf. So really, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them and get them out of the way.
140, you win.
Yeah, there's plenty more time now. FYI, it's 7:41 here, so I still got quite a bit of time. I feel bad. See, this is why I feel bad, because a lot of of our audience aren't even in close to time zone.
And I guess we could like the earliest we could do the stream is like right after work at like 5:15, which would still put it at like midnight for most people that are in like EU.
Yeah. But most of our events in One Leaf, either project based or like just communication, voting, or anything like that, our minimum is like a day, because we understand it takes about a full 24 hours to get everyone's like cycle of the day through. Because right now, I mean, it's 2 a.m. for you. So if we waited 8 hours, well, maybe you only have 2 hours to react to it and that stuff. So we have a lot of waiting too. I think we had that brought up before of it's either hard to get into or it's slow if you're doing any work in that stuff. But really, I think 24 hours is like our minimum time to wait for a lot of people to collaborate, unless we want to just react on it and wait for our local time. So that's another reason why we're looking at other community managers to hopefully shorten that time down, because I know if anyone joins and they give an introduction and Sabian, Susie, and I are asleep, that they can't really join the One Leaf Discord. I mean, obviously you're in it, but if we don't rank you up after you give an introduction, then you just kind of wait as you joined. So yeah, I think we need a. Did we put that in the announcements that we need one? I know we've been talking about it for a bit, but
I think we did. Hold on. I'm pretty sure you reminded Cody to put that in there. No, maybe not.
yeah, we'll need to touch on that, because I mean, we don't need it, but as we always want to grow and add more people to the team, it's always welcome, and we've always held it as an opportunity. So we're always looking for more people that would love to kind of help drive the force of One Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and yeah, I know Susie works offshores, or
I work with international team,
yeah,
so I know like we have meetings sometimes where one of them I had to be working at 8 a.m., but I know other teams have earlier. They kind of put limits on the design team. If you're a business person in my company, you don't have that luxury. And some of them, like, I have a lot of 4 o'clock meetings because our headquarters is in Arizona, and that's not that far behind us, but that's 2 hours behind us, so it's just like the afternoon for them. Um, and that's also working with all Australian team, because Australia, if it's like 4 o'clock here, it's like morning there. So yeah, I'm kind of used to the whole weird times.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now.
Huh, my computer is behaving funky. Oh,
Oh,
something else that we should bring up. We found a Python guy to help all the new people that are interested in learning Python. Um, I think we should chat about how we want to handle who we should send people to like branch them out to others that are interested in the same set of skills. I almost feel like we need some way to track that and for people to know who to talk to rather than us to have to manually send them to somebody.
I don't want to send anyone to anyone.
Yeah, that's fair.
If this apparent person that we found, why do I have to send people to them? Shouldn't they be paying attention?
No, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you're right.
And besides, one is a very specific number. In a week we might have two, and now I have to pick one or two. So I guess if you're the whole idea is that we have an open mentorship policy. If you want to mentor people, if you feel like you're in the position that you would benefit from mentoring, or that you would be, you know, uh, beneficial to a mentee, then please sign up to be a mentor, because that's where I think we could talk and maybe find and maybe kind of like shout out, hey, anyone in the mentor channel, Python guy, and then kind of point them to the focus. I don't think signposting's any good. I think it's good when you come in to kind of know your options. But yeah, I'm always more of an organic guy, of where if anyone who joins with, blah 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 blah, Perl, and I always point the same Perl guy, well, that's overloading, that's bottleneck, that's just kind of dry, it's not organic. I would expect the Pearl guy to look in the chat and see Pearl, or maybe we can message them and say, hey, message them instead of signposting. And so Elon's asking, some people might be afraid to ask for help. And yeah, we get that a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. But the thing is, when people join, we try to at least require an introduction. And in that introduction, a lot of people say what they work on. So that's our minimal thing that we can go off of. So if someone says they're interested in Python in there, then I guess that's all we have to go off of, other than once they've connected with the community. So like signposting there is good, but then we really need that mentor, or that person that needs to help them communicate and reach out to them, because we can't keep being like, hey, blah 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 will help you, because what about if they don't?
And I think having kind of our community moderators like Sarah and Cody kind of help us introduce people to others is kind of probably the best way to do this organically as well. Because if you just introduce somebody, it's a lot easier than just saying, "Hey, you Python guy, help."
Yeah, asking for help's really tough. But I don't I don't know if it's the courage of asking for help. I don't know if, it's just being shy, or it's the fact that they don't know what question to ask. Um, I mainly think it's, the last point, or the latter, of that if you know the question, or if you know a good question to be asked, then it's easier to ask it, and that's kind of redundant after you say it. But then once you know the yeah, so I'm just going to say the same thing, but it, a lot of people don't know which question to ask, and I think that's why they're shy. Do you have any tips on that, Sabian, to kind of start thinking of the right questions to ask, or to kind of break down that barrier of like, what's a good question or what's a stupid question?
um, I think the only stupid question is asking if you can ask a question. That is one of the few things that bugs me. I understand why, right? You don't want to just like shout it out into the world, but that kind of wastes everybody's time. So, like, if you're gonna use the help channel, just shout your question out to the world and see who can help, rather than saying, "Hey, can I ask a question?" Because who wants to respond to that? Like, who knows to take that question? Um, but other than that, there's really no stupid question because when you're first starting out, like you don't even know what to ask because you don't know what you don't know. Um, so yeah, like just ask somebody that seems like they know what they're doing, and even if they don't, they can ask around and hopefully find somebody
Well,
that does.
yeah, I don't know. That's a little bit different. I don't know if we want to touch on that a little bit more. But if you don't know the answer, just say I don't know. Don't just be like, yeah, I know the answer, and then Google it and then be an ass. So Elon asked, I often had loads of questions, but I feel like I should be Googling it and doing it on my own research.
Oh, that's a really good question, or a
That
really
is
good
both.
point.
You got it then?
Oh no, go ahead. I'll add to it after you.
Okay. One second. Another question. So I'll answer the first question. If you have loads of questions, first, there's two things that like I always think, yes, you should consult Google first. But if your loads of questions are more of a conversation, then you shouldn't go to Google. If you're trying to have a conversation of understanding, it's better to have a conversation with a person than Google. But if you have a specific amount of questions, like I'm going to be kind of, I wouldn't say mean, but like pointing at a specific issue, like how do I do blank in Swift, in Python, in blank? Like those questions you should not be asking people. Hey, how do I loop over, a string and check if, the characters are vowels or not? You shouldn't be asking someone that. That's something that you can Google. But if you have questions on what are the differences between .NET and C#, why would you use something like this, and how does it contribute to this? If it's more of a conversation, then I feel like having the conversations majorly beneficial. But the only thing that you have to make sure to do while you're having that conversation is that you still think of more questions. Because if you only get told stuff and you don't question stuff, then you're really going to be at a dead end once your questions are answered, because you're not going to have any more questions. And then where do you go from there? I hear a lot of people after they're done asking questions is like, well, I don't know what to do now. Well, it's because they didn't keep asking questions. They were told, and it's like, this is how you do it, this is how you do that. Well, do you have any questions on that? And that's where really you will find the answer to most of anything that you're wondering, is if you're thinking the right question. Is it, if this is a question I should discuss with someone, or is this a question I should research on? Now it could be both, and that's kind of where you've gotten experience from. But yeah, it's tough to know what you should Google and what you should talk about. But in the end, you can Google everything. So as long as you Google it first, you'll be in the safe, of that you did at least some research.
I think my thought process on asking questions is usually so. I'm gonna take this from two perspectives: one from work and one from in one leaf. If you're at work, my personal philosophy is if it's gonna take me longer than an hour and it would take a couple seconds for them to answer me, I would rather save the company the time of that developer just quickly handing me the answer rather than for example, if I get a bug and I don't even know where in the code to go edit it because my code base is so big, maybe I just say, hey, put me in the right section of the code to start looking this up. But for OneLeaf, for example, nobody's getting paid, so maybe you know. Be more generous with that hour. If you're getting like 3-4 hours, you're really beating your head against a wall. That would probably be a really good time to ask a question.
Well, there's a major difference between that and a member of One Leaf, is the fact that you got hired for the job and you should be able to do whatever they tell you. And a member of One Leaf is either someone just starting and doesn't know anything and should be able to ask any question, or they're, some professional level developer. There's any range of a member of One Leaf. So it's kind of, everyone is a member of One Leaf, but you should be able to do your job at least if you've got hired for it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if you're talking about basic agile, hey, we can solve this faster if it's 5 minutes of explaining versus 15 minutes, then yeah, I mean, agile on itself is working together. having people do other tasks than one single task, that's generally, kind of that topic. And of course, we kind of try to do that at oneleif of, hey, I'll work on this, but also I can jump on this project and do this. And I'm willing to learn this because I can gain experience with it.
Hello, folks. Sorry for being late.
Hi, Fardine.
Hello.
What topic did I interrupt in?
We were talking about when to Google versus when to ask a question.
Ah. Is Susie on the stream as well?
Mhm.
Did you talk about when to do that for design?
We did not. Go for it.
Susie, you want to take a crack at it?
You seem fairly confident.
Oh no, it was more so just like I didn't know if we talked about it from a design angle.
Can I talk about it?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I'll just crack the whip and we'll just go into it and you guys can fix me. So from a design angle, as an app developer with like no design experience, really it was Googling everything, getting examples of stuff, and kind of understanding what more people used. Not that necessarily the more it was used, the better it was, or the better user experience it was. More the fact that it was more common and easily understood from multiple different people. So that helped me for understanding that. But I didn't Google search like how to make a button look pretty or anything like that. I really went to the App Store, looked at my target market, looked at what I was developing for, found what I liked, found what I felt was intuitive, and moved from there to understand, at least from a design angle, where things are placed, what things mean what, and kind of going on that. Because personal experience, I mean, something makes sense for me, but that doesn't mean squat to the next person. I mean, if something makes sense for me, it might not make sense to everyone else. It might only make sense to me. So that alone, just Googling apps, just checking out stuff in the App Store, really helped me to understand kind of what even is design from the aspect of I wasn't ever taught it. So that's kind of just Googling from that. Talking, of course, with other people and especially talking with designers helps a lot more than other developers because I still feel kind of hesitant on talking to other people because I know everyone's opinionated in their own right. And when I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, I like this," and once they say like, it's just,
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna respect what you say, but you know what? I'm gonna be careful because passion really gets in the way of correct design for everyone. Because one person might just kind of come up and be like, "This is great," like. I think the last recent topic I'll discuss was the neomorphism, how that's kind of come back, and a lot of people have taken, the responsibility of neomorphism is really cool and looks really good and is fine accessibility. And then there's other people. And so that for that conversation of if you Google neomorphism when it's hot, well, of course you'll think it's good because it's more popular. But talking to people and talking to designers kind of changes your opinion because people have concerns that are not expressed from the hot or the trending kind of stuff of the design. But I'll turn it off to Susie and Fardine because obviously I haven't been professionally taught anything.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I wouldn't say I've been taught professionally either, but I think you've hit all the key points about the discussion. Personally, yeah, I'd say that I take the same approach. To kind of sum it up from what you described, um, I guess before I get into it, it does deserve to be said that design is a very highly subjective field because it is a bit more on the creative side. And I think we've talked about subjectivity um, of design versus objectivity with some of development's practices in a previous stream. But because, like other creative fields, it's so subjective, there's really no right way to do things. It's more so just a culmination of best practices developed by people in the space. Um, and that's what you kind of described, right? Like it's what works for you and for the people that you're designing or developing for. So kind of regarding the question of when to Google and when to ask questions, I think I think that's always an eternal battle for a designer, because so much of our role stems from that research, the user research and the user empathy part of the process. Um, uh, I'd say, speaking to my process and then kind of what you said too, it's usually the higher level macro concepts that I find myself Googling. Things like, how is this done? How is a certain design pattern done in let's say Google's material system or Salesforce Lightning system, or Googling for certain avatar dimensions, um, that are typically seen across different platforms, and then translating that to my workspace. Where I find myself asking questions is usually, for things like feedback or very minute, points that are personalized to my work specifically, that I wouldn't be able to simply Google. And this could be something from like, hey, how does the spacing between these two components look? Or um, how do you feel about this color versus that color? Things that wouldn't be easily explained by, finding answers on Google, because everyone would say, hey, my color is right, so choose my color, for example. So you kind of, yeah, it's basically the same thing as you said. I think it's just that there's that added layer of subjectivity, which makes it a bit harder to understand when to do, uh, any of those two processes. But I think, as with all things, it comes down to your personal situation, and I guess your intuition on what's best for you.
Yeah, I'll kind of tackle this from a professional standpoint. Like just being in the industry, like working in the industry, what I mean by that. So, a lot of the times, most of my questions can be answered kind of like what you said, looking at like material, if that's what we're designing in, or the company's style guide, design system type document. That's the first place I go. A lot of my stuff is answered there. I just have to like search through it, and sometimes I'll be looking for something that says, looking for something that's like for a photo uploader, like the UI of that. But to search it in our design system, I have to type in image upload. So knowing those keywords is like, whew. Anyways, if I can't find something and it's very like, it's an older item from before I was with the company, older design, or if it's more like, I have like ish idea, but like not quite sure and it's style guide related, I will ask someone in our company real quick. I'll just message them. Um, but like when to Google versus that, I typically, yeah, just look at style guides. That's where my answer. And if they aren't, I asked someone on my team. So
Yeah, I'd say, that pretty much sums it up from the design angle. It's very much like photography. Um, Usually, that gives a good comparison for people that might have trouble understanding what it's like in design. Um, it's very easy to search up how to change lighting, for example, in the background of a photo that you've taken. But it's, you wouldn't get as clear of an answer, on how to adjust, let's say, the slope of the mountain in the background using Photoshop. Um, Specifically regarding with your photo, um, you might find some general tutorial or general advice and help, but you wouldn't get it specifically catered to yours. And I think that's where things like this differ, like subjective fields like this, where development kind of has the advantage is, having had a mass of people over several decades, develop very intricate processes to do things, and very streamlined ways to do them, that you can always use that as a benchmark. But with design and with other creative fields, it's always evolving. So yeah.
So we have a change the conversation to the next topic. We have a question from Elon Tusk. Would you say design positions are more or less complicated or competitive than dev? Oh, if you said complicated, I would say they're more complicated than dev. But since you said competitive,
They're fairly
even.
equal.
I would
Yeah.
say that development's in a weird position of it's underabundant and it's also overabundant at the same time. There's a lot of devs that are just fresh out of college that don't know how to actually develop anything. They just know they have a degree in the language. I feel like designers are more on the other end of that they at least know something of their degree versus the devs. But I think they're both
I'd actually
equally
disagree.
competitive.
Huh?
I'd actually disagree with that. I think both fields are like that.
Because like I didn't even learn like UX design. I learned that in my internship. I really didn't learn that in college, except for maybe one class we kind of covered it. And like what I learned in school was like old Adobe Illustrator, mocking up, which
yeah,
is kind of similar to your experience, where it's like kind of.
I would disagree.
Where like no one really mocks up in there anymore, but like that's what I learned in school. So I had to learn like Sketch and now Figma on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, having learned everything by myself too, and not necessarily having any professional opportunity to do so. It's tricky to answer this question with that perspective. I haven't been in the workplace traditionally, so I can't really give a first-hand account of this. But from the people that I know that are designers, um, and from reading up on industry news, and then from being part of design communities, uh, it's very challenging to say whether it's more competitive or not. I'd say what Zach said is equally as relevant to the design field, and I think a lot of companies and organizations are realizing how valuable design is, but it's still so early in the timeline that they don't often really know how it applies to their organization and the work they do. And you'll find a lot of design positions um, being created just for the sake of having a designer, um, or creating few minor tweaks when they're really not required. Regarding competition, it's really difficult to say that at a lower level of the industry. At a higher level, absolutely. Like Apple, any of the FANG companies, any of the big names, any company within the Fortune 100, 500, they absolutely see huge levels of competition. Design has been inherent to their process since, in some cases, since the company's inception. Like Apple is a very design heavy company. And to be a designer at Apple, you have to fight tooth and nail to get in. And there's a whole process and so on. So definitely at the higher levels, you see very, very competitive environments in a
And
very
oops,
sorry, but
sorry. I was in that kind of situation. I would say like UX research even requires at that level a master's at least. Like
yes.
some of those bigger companies have stricter requirements when it comes to designing, but also like they do a code too. Like they have a ton of interviews where it's super like and like super tough. No,
I don't know. All I
this
know
is tough.
is that design has, it's a double-edged sword of like if you learn design, then you know design, but then there's all different types of mediums to use design, like mobile, web, an actual app, which operating system you're on, all that different types of stuff. But for what I was talking about development, at least in college, they teach you specific ways to develop, which are specific for different platforms or operating systems. For my personal case, they taught me specifically Java, C, and C++, which I don't use professionally. So that's at least why I said designers, for me at least, seem a little ahead, just because there isn't the gap of you learned programming language or you learned two programming language, and now you need to learn a completely different one for your job. It's at least in the same realm of design is design, and I guess programming is programming. I'm not trying to play down that at all, but I will say that I think personally that design is more competitive because I think there are less positions for a design team than there is a development team. Going back to the whole thing of I said that there are different platforms, you need a development team for Android and you need a development team for iOS and you need a development team for web, but you need one design team.
Or just one designer.
Yeah.
Adding to that, I think it's very easy to see design to also be competitive, just because, especially if you're removed from design itself, because it's an entirely different process, and a lot of people conflate it with um, visual design, which is not at all required for design. A lot of people think it's just making pretty screens and polishing up whatever the devs build. And there's a huge misconception of the entire industry because of that. And I think that creates um, a sort of hype that it's very difficult to get into, and you have to be creative, and you have to have some sort of visual talent to get into design and be a successful designer. But that's absolutely not the case. And I think what you'd often see is that with design, the opposite is actually appreciated more. Um, there have been many cases where I've seen designers with a unique perspective or unique background um, win over conventional talent, and win over opportunities where someone who studied graphic design, let's say for 4 years, couldn't even get. Whereas someone from an entirely different degree, let's say in economics, um, got a position at Google. So I'd say it's more so the ability to do good research, to then translate those into findings, and then regardless of which design you're doing, whether it's service, industrial, product, it's then being able to translate those findings into results that you can then convey to the development team and the rest of the organization. If you can do any of that, given any background, then you're absolutely competitive. Um, Regarding competition over dev, it's I think it's one of those anecdotal things. I think we're all speaking from our personal experiences, and it's really hard to say it from an industrial level of what it looks like. But yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Elon had another question. Like which stack, if you wanted to do web dev, is there a stack that's most universally applicable to various companies at the current moment? And I like the stipulation of at the current moment rather than just in general, because it does kind of matter the time frame that you're looking in, because um, the stacks shift so quickly. Um, if I had to just be very objective about it, I believe the most job openings are for Java and .NET for backend, and for front end, they're going to be some sort of JavaScript um, framework like React or Angular.
I would say Node is more popular than Java and
Yeah, you're
C
probably right.
Sharp.
But I think okay. So I guess we have to kind of break it up into the industry that we're talking, because if we're talking enterprise, like large scale systems, they're more likely going to be using Java or C Sharp. But if they are, I don't want to say smaller, but if they're non-enterprise, they'd be more likely to go with something like Node, because it would be, you need less types of developers, right? Because for example, Node requires JavaScript knowledge. Same with the front end. So the language at least would be something that is overlapped. But really, when you're deciding on which stack to go with, that shouldn't, it should be largely a personal decision. And everybody is, you know, lots of people.
Well, I think first off, we should point out the fact that saying stack in the term that we're saying web dev, I don't think makes too much sense, right? Like stack normally kind of picks, are you working web? Are you front end, back end? Are you mobile front end? Are you game, other things like that. I get there's other things like that, but I guess specifically, what are you talking about? Because once you say web dev, I would just say, well, JavaScript or Java. I mean, those are the two top web dev languages by volume. Yeah, okay. So now you mean the different stacks. Yes. Okay. So then you're going based on stacks based on already declared stuff. So for the mean stack, you're already using Node and JavaScript. So I mean, like at that point, you're stuck with JavaScript. I don't know the LAMP stack that much. I'm not a web dev. I mean, I know APIs and iOS apps. So um, I mean, going back to your question, if someone is considering a web dev career, is there a stack that is most universally applicable to various companies and operations at the moment? At the moment, I don't know because I'm not a web dev, but I guarantee at this moment will change in a few years. So I don't think ever it is a good time to learn what is at the moment. And this might be a time to kind of chat in the hashtag web chat and ask what other people think about that, because I know other people will have a lot more ideas on stacks and that stuff specifically for web. But when you're asking for stacks, it's kind of like when I first read your question, I thought, oh, maybe Flutter, because that is technically a web dev that is kind of exploding at some point, I would imagine. But right now, I would say JavaScript, especially since you said mean. Sabine, do you have anything?
Yeah, you really can't go wrong if you pick Java, C# or JavaScript. There's tons of job openings for each one. It does kind of depend on where you live though. So I guess I want to add that clarification. Like, don't just go off and learn one of them if you
Yeah,
live
what
in
about Swift and Kotlin
For
uh,
or
mobile.
Ruby or Python?
those also kind of depend on where you're at, right? Because maybe you're in Florida near Cape Canaveral where NASA is stationed. There may be a lot more Python based jobs than there would be .NET because like scientists on average tend to use Python because it's something that they're more familiar with as a uh, solution to their problems.
Yeah, so going back to the question, it looks like it was clarified that LAMP is actually using PHP. So really kind of starting to find out what your favorite language is, really just sticking with that, because you'll learn the most from sticking with one language versus going to one and then using the other, and then, okay, I found a job in another and I'm used to switching. That's not really what you get hired for. What you get hired for is you have a specialization in some thing, and that may be a language, that may be some development stack, and those may line up. But if you're used to LAMP and there's a job for mean, most likely you won't get it because you don't have that experience with JavaScript, or at least you're not focusing on that. That's where I'd say that's very competitive. Of someone that knows at least a little bit more JavaScript will most likely get the job if they have around the same communication and soft skills as you. It's really just who knows more at that point.
And I guess it does kind of differ the kind of skills that you're showing off depending on the level that you're at. For example, as a junior dev, you may not have to show a specialization quite yet. You may need to get across the point that you can learn quickly and you're good to work with. That may, depending on the hiring manager, that may be more important than your specific knowledge in the stack that they're looking for because they can train you in that. But if you are like a senior level developer, you will want to be more specialized.
Yep. And last thing I would say, honestly, means better than LAMP. PHP is not fun at all.
It's
And
probably
also the
dying.
fact that LAMP includes Linux in it just kind of confuses me. I mean, most of the things run on web are Linux, but then it's really just AMP for me because Apache, MySQL, and PHP. I think the mean stack has a little bit more going for it, especially since the A is for Angular, right? So you get a little bit more of a front end and that stuff, but the LAMP stack doesn't look that much at all. And then yeah, Arcus says as mainly a backend dev, I mean, if you can do backend JavaScript, then you're doing front end JavaScript, and that just makes it easier. So if you learn Node, then all you have to learn is, some JavaScript on the front end, which is the easiest. So that's what at least I use at my job. We have a back end that's Node.js and a front end that's Svelte. So I would say go with JavaScript. I mean, it's just the simple fact of nothing else runs on the web until we have WebAssembly and everything working perfect other than JavaScript right now. So I guess my answer is go JavaScript for right now, even though I'm not the biggest JavaScript fan.
Same.
Yeah, I would rather make API or Vapor API that just sends plain text HTML as a website versus use JavaScript. But I'm in my own boat right there.
Well, guys, any other questions while we're here?
I'm reading the stream chat if you're not.
Oh, it didn't update.
Tell me if I'm
Inundating.
I've never seen that word before. It's just words that you've never seen. That you're like, why didn't school prepare me for this moment right now?
Inundating
But
just means if he's
also,
asking
on
too
the
many
topic
questions.
of web beginners, I find them a bit confusing. Same with async, how everything fits together in a prod app. Any idea distilling it? So maybe let's start with this. Async. So let's try to explain this because I think that's the fundamental understanding of how an API pull request, right, Sabian?
Mm-hmm.
So we have two different ways to run code. I'm talking, I don't know what Sabian's showing right now, but I'm kind of just trying to talk in your mind right now, so it's a little tough to not illustrate anything. But let's say we have a list of commands, and let's say that list goes between 0 and 5 or 0 and 10 lines of command. Okay, for synchronous code, we're going to run through each line of those commands one by one. So we're going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until we get to the end. The difference with asynchronous says that we may run 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, but maybe 1 is an asynchronous part of the code. And what that means is that we can run it, but like after it runs, it's still running. And I see your drawing, Saving. Maybe you want to take the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in paint and I am awful at handling a mouse
Oh,
really
no
well.
problem.
Perfect. What are you talking about?
So I guess what I'm trying to get across here is like if we're like completely ignoring the fact that your processor has multiple cores, it would look like this top drawing. It would just be in serial, like right. If I have one core on one processor, we're just going to execute in each process one after the other. Then we were like, oh, we have all these processors or all these cores. Let's do it synchronous. Let's break them all out and do them each on their own thread or each core, right? A thread is basically a way to say I'm doing a branch off of this process, and it's going to kind of go off and do its own thing and come back when it's done. And then so the problem with synchronous is that this actually was a problem with the Apache stack or the Apache web servers. Was that it was really easy to DDoS an Apache web server because as soon as you open a connection, right, you say, hey, Mr. Apache server, I want to connect to your website or whatever your web service is, and then Apache says, yeah, man, we'll open up a thread for you, and all your operations are done on this thread. Well, the problem with that is a processor only has so many threads that it can use, right? Usually, I think it's 2 threads per core on average. But yeah, so like, let's say you're running, a 16 thread processor. Well, you can only have 16 web connections open at a time, right? Whereas if you do asynchronous, it may be counterintuitive that you say, we're actually not going to be doing these things at the same time. Synchronous means at the same time, asynchronous meaning not synchronous. You're not doing it at the same time, right? So let's say I'm just going to keep this really simple. We have thread 1 and thread 2, and these are basically like separate timelines, right? And so how this is going to work is right on thread 1 a person comes in with a request and says, hey, I want to visit google.com, and then google.com server sends back something, right? well, we don't want to keep this thread open the whole time that that request is going on, because maybe you want to be able to use some processing time in between when those requests are being sent and coming back in. Um, so what you do then is basically, whenever you send a request, while you're waiting for it to come back, let's let this thread do some other stuff, right? And then when it comes back, then we can open that thread back up. And it doesn't have to be the same thread, right? That's the beauty of it. Well, the asynchronous code, whatever operating or whatever language you're using, that language has some sort of interface with your operating system that would say to the operating system, "Hey, I need a thread," and the operating system would either say, "Yeah, here's your thread," or you need to wait for us to have one. Um, so the upside of that is now we don't have that problem of our thread being locked down, right? We can kind of assign and take them away as necessary. The downside to it is a little bit of overhead and having to ask that operating system for the thread. I feel like that was a very long-winded answer.
So the nice part is that let's say we have this thread running, and pretty much that thread, or let's just say a line that continues to be drawn, is our thread, and that's kind of the life of our API. So if we were a synchronous API and someone called, and let's say our API returned the weather, if we were a synchronous API and someone called and asked for the weather, well, we have to stop all other code. So if someone calls, what's the weather on that first 0, 1, they call in what 1 is for the lines of code. Well, we have to wait until 1 completes until we can do 2, 3, 4, 5. And 2, 3, 4, 5 might be other people calling the API for the weather. So the nice part about asynchronous code, it allows us to keep that line drawn, keep going on our thread, but make as many calls as we can, as many threads as we have, or cores, as Sabian was saying, that we can handle. So let's say we're running this thread, our API is running, and we have 5 people that ask for their weather. Well, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Sorry, I was thinking 0. Those would all go on their own thread, and once they finish, they'll just pop back up, not interrupt the main thread. It will leave the API alone. Everyone can access the API. But once those requests are complete and the API knows where the weather is, it will just pop back the response on the main thread, or the one thread. I keep saying main because that's what it's called in quite a bit of multi-threading ones, where there's a UI thread that is the main thread that gets updated. So that's where it'll jump back on and give you your response. So 5 people could ask for the weather, and each won't have to wait on each other. But if it was asynchronous and it wasn't async, if 5 people asked for the weather, if it was synchronous, the first one would get their answer first, the second one would get their answer second, and the third one, and so on and so on. Since it's asynchronous, all of them can get the response at the same time, or in theory, get the response near the same time.
So we asked, how is the order of processes dictated? Is it like a queue system, or do some calls get priority for other reasons? And do the clients end up sharing resources a lot of the time? As far as the order
That's
of
great.
processes is dictated, it kind of depends on when they come in, right? So like if a request comes in, the operating system itself would handle that, right? So if your web server is running on Linux, the Linux operating system would determine, what request to handle first. And if extras
But
do come in, it would most likely be a queue. Sorry, go ahead.
also, there's other types of queues. So, at least from my perspective, coming from iOS, we have a main thread or main queue that deals with all the UI updates. So if you block on the main thread, well, your UI is going to lag. There might be some animation issues or anything like that. But there's also background threads. And notice how I say threads. There are multiple different background threads, and they can all be prioritized differently. but they're in the background. So as long as the main thread is prioritized and not blocked, then multiple different queues or threads can be prioritized in any different way. So at least for iOS, there's background threads that are that have a quality of service type, and some might just be from system initiated stuff, or some might be specific to user interaction, making a background thread on a user interaction, making an API call to grab something, and that might be prioritized a little bit more. Now, of course, yeah, there is a finite number of threads, but as Sabian said, the operating system will manage these threads in this order, and it will do as much as it can at once, as long as those threads are for, say, background threads. If you say you have, 4 main threads or, something like that, that doesn't make sense. We only have one main thread. The rest of the threads would have to be background threads that then once they're done, then they can update the main thread. It's really just updating the main thread once another thread is done, if that makes sense. But yeah, sharing resources is a complicated task on its own, because when you talk about threading and multi-threading, sharing resources is one of the hottest topics that can lead into either deadlock or other issues of accessing the same information on 2 threads.
And you'll learn these things
Night,
in
Arcus.
yeah, bye Arcus.
Nightly.
And you'll learn these things in an operating systems class if your degree program has one. As a side note.
Yep. And so there's 2 different things. Sounds like chaotic at scale. It can be, but it depends on which stack you're working from. An API that's asynchronous is meant to have tons of threads. It's meant to be ran on a bigger computer than your phone. But yeah, your phone isn't meant to have 50 threads all calling different APIs and doing different things. It's really meant to, like I said, have this main thread that updates your UI. If you tap on a button, it animates it and then moves to the next page. And maybe after you move to the next page, it'll call a background thread to pull in some data. After it pulls in that data, then it'll update the main thread, and then boom, you just pop in and you see the data pop in. So how that works is pretty much, if you go to the page and you're like, hey, I need to call this data, then you just start a loading spinner or a loading indicator. And then after you've gotten that data in that background thread, all you need to do is update the main thread and say, hey, I got the data, stop loading, show the data. And that's pretty much how that works for a lot of UIs or a lot of front-end clients dealing with API calls.
I don't know about you, Zach, but my focus is waning on this. If does anybody else have any questions? Otherwise,
I was just waiting for one more question. Maybe we'll be done.
I'm about to go to bed, take a nap.
I don't think you're going to bed.
Nah, I'm gonna go take a walk. That's what sounds nice.
A walk at
It's
8:30 at
dark.
night. You're gonna get mugged.
Isn't it cold too?
I
It's
hope
cold,
it's not cold.
windy, and
Is it
that's all.
cold? What is it?
It's
Is it cold?
it's definitely windy.
I haven't been outside today. It's 37 degrees. Damn. Rip my walk.
What's that in Celsius?
Like 5.
Whoa, you know that?
37? Really? Are you serious? 32 is 0.
2.7.
I was impressed.
I was so close.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
roughly
cool.
the same here too.
Oh, so yeah, sorry. I think we're done with questions. Yeah, go play CSGO, Sabian. Thank you all for watching. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Discord in general, Dev Talk, or even mainly the channel help if you have any questions. But yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to join. Do you guys have any other sign-offs?
I'm actually gonna go play some League of Legends if anybody wants to join.
Where's that walk?
I'm gonna walk my character around in League of Legends.
There you go.
Good night, guys.
Yep. Thanks for
Good
coming.
night.
Yeah.
See ya.